everyone, welcome back to another FVG podcast episode. Today we're talking about websites. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because if your business doesn't have a website, it's the number one thing that you should be having. And today we're joined by Leela Levy, our website project manager, which I'm so excited to have her on.
Hello.
Leela, can you briefly explain your role as a website project manager and what that entails?
Yeah, so basically I talk to the clients and our graphic designers and our website developers to ensure that we, from start to finish, get your vision right and execute on that to create either a website from scratch or just redesign your current website.
Amazing. And what's the biggest misconception business owners have about building a website?
I would say that they think that it takes much less time and thought, maybe. You can turn things around quickly, but because your website is kind of going to stay, you don't want to change it all the time. You really should take the time to consider things like, well, I could turn around a website relatively quickly. It's not going to be a quality website that targets what you're looking for, converts leads, whatever the goal of that website is, it might not do what you wanted it to do.
Yeah, and I think based off of the conversations that I've had with clients is when they come in with some kind of inspiration of like a website that they do like, that definitely helps the process because it allows us to see the style that they like, which is, I feel like, a timely process when they're trying to figure out what creative direction they would want to take for it, along with also the content as well.
Yeah, having good inspiration sites is definitely the best place to start.
Yeah. What should business owners clarify before starting a website project?
I would say who you're targeting and what actions you want them to take on your site. Do you want to direct them to calls? Do you want to direct them to forms? Are you trying to get a phone number from them, an email, all of the above? Like, what exactly are you trying to target? Because that will really direct the design, even just beginning with that.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many different things to do in a website, especially now, like looking back like 10 years ago, the functionalities were limited. So now with AI and everything, we have so many more things that we can do within a website. Why is defining a website's goal and target audience so important?
I would say because one, you want to make sure that if it's like supposed to be targeting younger people, that you have a newer, fresher looking site with like trendier almost designs or things that are trending in that area, whereas like an older audience might look for something different, or carpenters and building contracts and things like that are going to look much different than a CPG brand that's targeting millennials and Gen Z. So knowing exactly who you want to target so that you brand everything correctly, and then also not distracting them from your target goal. So if your target goal is fill out this form, everything on your website should be directing them to that and not directing them to this link and this link and this link. If they want to explore, they'll explore the site, but you want to always direct them to one or two actions.
Amazing. And what's the difference between website design and website development?
I would say that while they go hand in hand and you need to think about development when you design and vice versa, the website design is going to be the base of it. We're going to actually see how it looks, and it's important that you don't just get a graphic designer, you get a graphic designer who's familiar with website development or knows what developers can do. Because the more complicated you make a design, it might actually slow your site down when we develop it if it's not done correctly. Or it just might not even make sense for your target, what you're targeting the actions for them to do. So keeping in mind how the design transitions into the functionality and the development is important when you're designing it.
When should a business invest in custom design versus just using a template?
I would say if your brand is super important, for example, Rode or a brand like that really defines itself by its branding, that's when you really want to get something very, very specific to you. But if you're in the field of law or healthcare, or there's a couple of fields where you can get away with, adjusting the colors, adjusting the font. You can take a template and still make it look pretty different by adjusting it to your branding. So I would say don't shy away from templates if that's the best you can do in the moment. Really, the whole point, not every industry has to have the most gorgeous looking website and the most complex dev and functionality, as long as it gets the actions that you need.
Great. And I also wanted to talk about the SEO side of things because mostly with websites, people are wanting to get traffic to it, whether that's for services or products. How do you decide which platform is right for a website?
We tend to use Shopify or WordPress. That's our favorite. Shopify just for if it's like really a CPG brand and we want to make it as simple as possible for our client. But we have built shops on WordPress as well. It kind of depends on how complex you need the shop versus the website itself to be, what will lend itself more. Shopify has less ability to actually like change the design, whereas WordPress you can really do a lot. But Shopify is much easier to manage a store, whereas WooCommerce you can do it, but Shopify is just more user friendly. So yeah, it depends on what our client is looking for.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Shopify from certain clients that I've talked to, but on the SEO side of things, you have to like build content and blogs and everything to rank on Google or wherever you want to rank. When should SEO be considered during a website build?
I would say pretty soon you should have, when we're designing, if I know that like our client is on an SEO plan, then I'll have the team design a template for how like an SEO page will look like, which is just like a page with content. It's not necessarily always going to be linked on the main site, but it's just built into the site in the back end so that we rank higher on Google and other searches. So I would say I try to jump ahead, and we always, even if we don't have a client with an SEO plan with us, build a blog for them because that is super important to have. So even if in the future you're going to want to do it or you just weren't thinking about it now, we'll still build it in so that you have that opportunity to do it later on if you'd like.
And a lot of clients, they want a lot of functions in the website process. And what's one performance issue that most hurts conversions?
I would say a lot of clients really like pop-ups. It's not quite a performance issue, but it will kind of deter people from clicking into the rest of the site. You risk them clicking out of the pop-up or closing the tab entirely if they don't take the action of the pop-up. So the pop-up, really, you only want one on the entire site, and you want it to be really intentional and make sure that it's actually providing like a good, maybe not content, but providing value, like what you're serving them.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of clients that I've talked to is they want a lot of different things within their website and it can be really cluttered. And even when I'm like looking up a restaurant or something and then I see that there's just so much stuff on there, I'm like, oh, I can't even look at the website. Like I'll be looking at their social media instead. So I feel like, yeah, when like as a consumer, having more of a simple website, but also complex in certain ways to where you're able to see what they're offering is great. How long does a website project usually take?
I would say for something that's simpler, and granted that if our client is either providing the content or we're using the existing website content, because that can often take a while to receive, I would say between 2 to 3 months to have like a fully fleshed out site. Now that varies based on how many pages we're designing and building. Is it a shop? Is it just like an informational, like regular site or are they selling products? That takes a lot longer to build. Yeah, so I would say we've had them take longer and we've had them take less time. It just depended on how specific, like how many rounds of feedback we got for design, how quickly we got responded to, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think a big part of it is how responsive the client is because they are going to be in the process of it. Whether that like be creating content or helping us to create the content because we'll be doing the heavy lifting, but they'll definitely have to be in the process of it all. But yeah, I think we do see it taking a little bit longer depending on the responsiveness of them. Where should business owners avoid cutting corners?
I would say maybe it's the maintenance of the site, because while the design is important and developing it is important, oftentimes our clients don't stay for a web maintenance plan. And even if you don't do it with us, you should have something to help you maintain the website, because that can lead to things slowing down, plugins not working because they haven't been updated. And then you risk forms not working, which is a huge way to gain leads. So you want to make sure that you're constantly checking your site's health. And while website maintenance isn't very expensive, it's probably the best thing that you can invest in for your longevity.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to talk about mistakes that are being made within website development or even on the client facing side as well, because I've been on discovery calls with clients and they'll tell me that they got a website developed from someone like a freelancer and it just wasn't what they wanted, and it's not bringing in any leads, it's not SEO optimized. So I wanted to ask you what the biggest mistake you see business owners make.
I would say coming in not knowing what the point of what the goal of their website is, or what like they're trying to get their customers to do. Like, as we said, taking actions is important. But if you're on a website and it says call here, click the link here, get your free estimate here, you want to contact us, if you're getting pulled in a million different directions, you're not going to take any of the actions. You're just going to get overwhelmed and say, I don't even know where to go to start with this. So I would say that oftentimes our clients will say, well, I want phone calls and I want this and I want emails and I want form submissions. And I'm like, okay, we'll pick one or two and we'll go from there. And also just not having, we recently had a client and there was not like a good site map. And so if you haven't designed the navigation, like the header, to have like really clear things, like we don't want to be cluttered, we don't want a million drop downs, like just make it really clear where they're going to find the information. And once we have that, we can change things along the way. If you decide, no, I actually want this, and no, I think I want this to be on the main page, like really easy. And we do often have them change their mind once they see it in the design. But knowing certain things for sure before we begin is really helpful in like making a good design that actually converts.
What's one thing every business owner should know before starting a website?
I would say they need to know how much of themselves I'm going to need and their knowledge to actually make a good website, because I can't be knowledgeable and neither can our team about every field, and especially how they operate in their field. So while I can Google it and I can ask ChatGPT and, all the things, it's not going to be as useful as the actual client. So I do always say, does this work? Can you read this? Like, does this make sense for your business? Because at the end of the day, you are the expert about your business.
Yeah, exactly. So 4 years ago, I learned about website design. I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and this was 4 years ago. But I was wondering what it looks like now in the modern world, because that was so long ago, and I feel like it definitely has changed. How do you think it looks, website design and website development looks now versus 4 years ago?
Well, I will say that I wasn't really in websites 4 years ago. And I also I'm not a developer, so I kind of tell them, hey, is this possible? And
Yeah.
from experience, I usually know what's possible or not. But I will say that I think that probably Wix used to be really, really popular back then. And now we've kind of shifted to WordPress just because it gives you a lot more functionality and plugins than I'm familiar. I'm not super familiar with Wix, but that's what I used to use ages and ages ago. But I will say that maybe business owners are seeing a change in how even Google serves their content and what worked then. We recently had a client who said that he was recommended by someone to just have multiple domains and just live on multiple sites. And now that's not what Google pushes forward. Google wants one domain with all your content under that domain, and that's what strengthens you. And you actually will get pushed down very far below, like in your search results. So someone who used to be doing this 10 years ago and was top of the search results is now going to be much closer to the bottom because they haven't shifted with the times.
Yeah, I think another thing that we've talked about internally as well is like SEO and GEO, because now generative engine optimization is part of like the LLMs and how you're able to get information from there. So that's a really big thing as well that is going to be huge moving forward too.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be seeing that more in the future. But I wanted to ask, what one final piece of advice for business owners planning a website would be?
I would say that make sure, like you said, SEO and GEO are super important. Make sure that whoever you're working with is setting you up for success and not just handing off a website where you didn't think you needed a blog because you weren't going to be posting one. But actually, if you took on someone's SEO services, that's what they would need to successfully bump you up in the search results. So make sure that you are thinking steps ahead about how you're going to be using the site and what future services you're going to need. So if you're thinking about doing paid media in the future, make sure you have a template landing page built with whoever's designing your website, things like that, so that you can get it all done in one.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining, Leela, and stay
Thank
tuned for
you.
another FVG podcast episode. We are putting out one a week, so stay tuned. We're talking all things marketing, so you're going to want to hear it.